Hello everyone, back to today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather next week, 10 days. In today's second video, it's going to take us to around the start of April. So we're going into the Easter period with the week to 10 day weather musings now. And it looks like we're going to be turning things colder again next week. So we may well have certainly more problems with frost as we go through up towards Easter. And we may even have some more snow as well. And that would be particularly so for northern parts of the country, but maybe not exclusively so. We could bring down some unusually cold air from the north and the northeast yet again. So I'll show you everything that's going on very shortly. Just say that we did release a 5-day forecast earlier on today. You can find that video here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit, and it's above the snow desk. There's also the written version, and you get to that from the buttons at the top of the page. Going to be a fairly quiet 5 days coming up. All of the action is really beyond the 5-day forecast period. We'll start off having a look at the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations. So the black line here tells us where we've been with the AO. The red lines at the end, where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the AO to go. This is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere over North Pole. It's not driving anything, it just tells us what the weather is doing. So back in the early part of February, we had a sudden stratospheric warming, which produced a large area of high pressure over Scandinavia and extensive northern blocking at the end of February and into March. And because we have that high pressure over Scandinavia and northern blocking, it sent the Arctic oscillation through the floor. We had a crash with the black line there going down to a very negative level. Since that happened, we've gradually been reducing that blocking signal and bringing the Arctic oscillation back up to sort of more neutral to slightly positive levels. That's where we are right now, as the blocking has relaxed and reduced. So we've seen the Arctic oscillation going into recovery from that crash that occurred at the end of February. The GFS ensembles for the next week want to keep the Arctic oscillation largely in positive territory, but as we go through to the extended range, the end of March into the start of April, we're seeing signs of negativity of the Arctic oscillation once again. So it does look as though we may, by the time we get through to the end of March and start of April, we may be starting to see high pressure returning to the northern latitudes, and that could be what plunges us back into quite cold weather by the time we get through towards the Easter period. Northern Atlantic oscillation is very similar. So again, the black line tells where we've been with the NAO. The red line's at the end where GFS ensembles forecasting the NAO to go. Through most of the winter, the NAO was positive. We had the southern stratospheric warming as the AO went negative, so too did the NAO. So that crashed down as well. Not as much or as dramatically as the Arctic oscillation crashed, but even so, it went negative at the end of February into the start of March. And then through March, we generally kept it in negative territory. That's where we are right now. And we're still negative with the NAO. GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go weakly positive in the next week. So the AO and the NAO should both be going positive in the next week, meaning that for a time it is going to get a little bit more spring-like. But then we see signs actually within the GFS ensembles that the NAO will also be going back in towards negative territory for the end of March and into the start of April, which is this period just here. So it does look as though we could be bringing colder weather back in around a week or so's time. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. So just briefly, in the next day or so, we're going to go quite mild. Looking at the ensemble for London today, by the way, going to be going quite mild in the next day or so. Then we see temperatures at the end of the week into the weekend going back down towards average levels. And as getting to extended range, which is this period just here, we have got signs that we're going quite cold with those upper air temperatures. Once again, you'll notice this thick green line breaking away from the rest of the coloured lines. That is the latest operational run of the GFS, which I'm going to show you in a moment. It does go very cold in its extended range, or very cold for the time of the year. Most ensemble members aren't quite as cold as that. Nevertheless, we know from the past 2 cold spells that we've had that it tends to be the operational runs that lead the ensembles if you like. So if it's going to follow the same course as the last two cold spells, Beast from East 1, Beast from East 2, it could well be that the operational GFS is kind of leading the pack, if you like. All these other coloured lines will eventually get to where the operational run of the GFS is. That's a bit speculative, but I think the general thrust of the ensemble in the extended range anyway is to be quite cold. As far as precipitation is concerned, a reasonable amount of dry weather through the rest of the working week, but over the weekend into next week it's turning more unsettled as well as becoming colder. Surface temperatures are looking like this for London. So this is plus 10 Celsius, that's freezing, that's minus 10, and that just there is plus 20, which we're not going to get to for the time being. So we see at the moment relatively mild, temperatures around 10 degrees, but it's nothing to get excited about really in London in late March. You would hope that temperatures will get a little bit above 10 degrees, maybe to 13 or 14, but we're going to flatline at that sort of 10 Celsius maximum level through to the start of next week. But then through next week, you'll see that there is a cooling trend in evidence here. We see the temperatures dropping away. Remember, these are maximum temperatures, so they're going under 10 degrees, which is going to be quite cold for London, but perhaps more impactfully, really, is going to be the minimum temperature, because many of these ensemble members are going down, but at or below freezing with the minimums. So it does look as though it is going to be getting colder in the days ahead, and particularly in around a week's time through towards the Easter period. Not as dramatically cold, probably, as the first two cold spells that we had, Beach East Part 1, Beach East Part 2. I don't think it'll be quite as dramatically cold as that, but it looks like it's going to stay below average, really, and get colder as we move towards Easter, and snow is not to be ruled out as we get to Easter either. Temperature anomalies for the next week are looking like this. Now, this is very unusual. The whole of Europe, from Ireland and Portugal out to west, over to Russia in the east, and all points in between are coming out colder than average, which is very unusual. It's very rare occurrence these days to see the whole of continental Europe colder than average. So quite a sight to be seen there. Precipitation anomalies from the 21st to the 29th of March coming out close to average, maybe a little bit on the drier than average side, if anything. This was the midnight run of the GFS. So we find that we've got the winds in from the northwest on Sunday. It's going to be rather cool over the weekend, but not a huge amount going on. We do cover this in the 5-day forecast. So going out beyond that 5-day forecast period to Tuesday, 27th of March, next Tuesday, we find low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, and that's bringing quite a bit of cloud and rain. So quite unsettled with some rain at times in the middle of next week. And then as we work towards Easter, this is Maundy Thursday, 29th of March, we find that low pressure moving over to the east. That begins to turn the winds back into the north and the northwest. There's probably some sort of weather front strung out in this sort of position as well. So on the northern side of that, the air is going to be quite cold. So on the northern side of that front, there might be some snow as that pushes through during the middle part of next week. And then that low pressure kind of collapses to the south, and that starts to turn the winds properly into the east. So there's the upper air temperatures, unusually cold air again over Scandinavia, and that unusually cold air is moving back over the North Sea and heading into the UK. That takes us up to day 10, which is Saturday the 31st of March, Easter Saturday, finds us in a really cold north to northeasterly wind. There's the upper air temperatures. So this is the last day of March. The GFS model midnight run was forecasting the -10 isotherm to be covering pretty much the whole of mainland UK. So that is highly unusual for so late in the season. To be seeing that on the 31st of March, last day of March, is really quite unusual indeed. Of course, these east to northeasterly winds could well be bringing in snow showers as well as we move up to day 10, and also there's a risk of some significant night frost too. So highly unusual sort of developments that we see here with the GFS. It is going for some very cold air indeed for the time of year. Now this is the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. Again, we start on Sunday, which is covered by the 5-day forecast period time frame. There's not a lot going on over the weekend, so I think we'll very quickly sort of gloss over that, and that takes us through to Monday, the end of the 5-day forecast period. This takes us to Tuesday, when it looks like it turns more unsettled. So a band of rain starts to head in from off the Atlantic on Tuesday. Relatively mild with that. So particularly for the south, it should feel okay as we start next week. But then through to the middle of next week, low pressure is really taking over the pattern. You'll notice this high pressure is starting to ridge up through the central part of the Atlantic as well. So that's going to force this low pressure to the south and to the east. Very unsettled through the middle of next week with showers or longer spells of rain. And then as we go into the second half of next week, going up to the Easter period and arriving at the Easter period, we find this low pressure again moving southwards and eastwards, which is turning winds back into the north and to the northeast too. Here's the upper air temperatures bringing a surge of cold air out of Scandinavia into Scotland, northern England by the time we go through to Good Friday. And then as we get to Easter Saturday, day 10, the winds are firmly in from the northeast, even a little bit of an easterly tilt to that wind, bringing bitterly cold air in across the country. Again, there's a -10 ice flow, not quite as extensive over the country as it was on the midnight run, but again, unusually cold air has plunged southwards across the UK from Scandinavia over the North Sea into British Isles, and therefore we can by day 10 be expecting certainly the risk of hard night frost and ice, probably snow in northern and eastern parts of the country as well. Now, up to today, the ECMWF has been wavering about this. The GFS has been consistently quite cold for a few days for this Easter period. The ECM hasn't really been there, but look what it's doing today. We're starting off again on Sunday into the early part of next week, turning very unsettled again. There's probably some sort of weather front in that sort of position, bringing a lot of rain across the country up to the middle of next week, and cold air is trying to push in on the northern side of that weather front. Eventually we go up to Thursday 29th of March, and we find that the frontal systems are aligning like that. So again, on the northern side, it's cold. That could be bringing snow into the middle part of next week to northern parts of the country. In the south, it's relatively mild air. Well, you wouldn't necessarily say mild air, but it's not as cold as it is on the northern side of those areas of low pressure and the weather front. And eventually we find that low pressure slipping down to the south, which begins to turn the winds into the north. So by Good Friday, cold northerly winds are surging southwards again. That takes us through to day 10, which is Saturday 31st of March, where we're looking cold. Then we're in a northeasterly flow, and there's the upper air temperatures. Not as cold as the GFS is showing, but still bring a little puddle of -10, 850 HPA air in from the north and the northeast as well, which is unusually cold for the final day of March. I mean, we're talking about getting towards the middle of spring, really, by the time we get through to the end of March and the start of April, certainly middle of meteorological spring, anyway, not astrological spring, because that's only just started, of course, with the sun now past the equator and just returning to the northern hemisphere. So astrologically, we're only into the start of spring, but meteorologically speaking, spring began on the 1st of March, and by the 31st of March, it's very unusual to see such cold air masses getting into the UK. So it does look like we're in for another dose here. I don't think it's going to be as bad as, certainly won't be as bad as Beast from the East 1. Shouldn't be as bad probably as Beast from the East 2 either. But nevertheless, it still looks unusually cold. I think there will be a significant risk of a return to hard night frost and ice by Easter, and maybe some snow as well. Certainly can't be ruled out to the north, and you wouldn't totally rule it out even further south. So I think, again, it's a case of watch your space, and let's just see how this Easter period is going to evolve. Right, don't forget to check out 5D Forecast if you haven't yet done so. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.